In this section, we're going to look at evidence of evolution. If you look at paleontology, the discovery and study of fossils, we've mentioned before that fossil evidence shows the changes of living life forms over time. Fossils are trapped in rock strata, and the oldest organisms are found in the lower levels of the strata and the newer organisms in the top. And it shows a succession or change in these life forms from those that are more simpler to more. This picture shows some visible strata. Fossils can only form if organisms die and are quickly covered with sediment. You will not see the fossilized remains of any soft structures of an animal, such as brains or other organs. And very soft-tissued organs, such as jellyfish, will never form a fossil. The organism is buried, and then minerals seep through the layers of sediment, and they fill in the spaces where the structures that took longer to decay, such as the bones, were found. We mentioned previously that tree sap, resin, or amber can also trap organisms, and you may actually also find footprints of animals that were preserved. As you can see, the structures that in red, such as the claws and teeth, are similar to those found in reptiles. But the structures that are colored in green, the feathers and the wings, are structures that you would find in a bird. So this indicates a transition or shift between that of reptiles and birds. If you look at whales, whales are marine mammals, and they are believed to be descendants of land mammals. And the reasons why we think that they were once land mammals is they need air to breathe. And if you look at their bone structure of their fins, it resembles that of the limbs of land mammals. They have pelvic bones, and they have very tiny short femurs or thigh bones, which are non-functionally but are still present in their skeleton. Also, whales have a vertical movement in their spine, and that's more similar to that of a running mammal than the horizontal movement found in fish. This diagram illustrates a artist's rendering of the evolution of horses. So initially, horses were much smaller, and they actually had paws. Paws which had nails or fingernails, and over time, the one finger, the middle finger, became more prominent, and the fingernail became larger and more hardened, developing into a hoof, and the other fingers slowly disappeared over time. We mentioned before that biogeographical evidence is evidence that shows a connection between animals found in different areas of the world. Remember the model that we showed of the supercontinent Pangaea? That indicates that the continents were all connected very long ago. So South America, Antarctica, and Australia were all connected. Marsupials and placental mammals arose at that time. Marsupials are only plentiful in Australia because they drifted away from the competition with the placental mammals, which are found in the other continents. The only marsupial found in the Americas is the opossum. And in many cases, marsupials and placental animals resemble each other. As I mentioned before, with the whales having remnants of hip bones and legs, this indicates anatomical evidence that supports the theory of evolution. Vestibular structures are structures that are still found in an organism, but are very reduced and are non-functioning. So whales and snakes have remnants of hip bones and upper leg bones or femurs. In a human, we still have a tailbone, even though we don't have a tail. We have an appendix, which is a non-functioning vestibular structure. There are several different theories of what function the appendix used to have. One theory is that it housed digestive enzymes that were useful for breaking down plant material. Another theory is it is a lymphatic organ, and it houses good bacteria. And so in cases of severe gastrointestinal distress, it was like a warehouse or a storage area for good bacteria that would need to recolonize the gut. Humans also have wisdom teeth, which are theorized to have been practical in chewing raw plant material. That kind of goes along with the theory of the appendix containing the digestive enzymes. We also have a helix of the ear, or the outer part of our ear, the part that you would pierce. In most other mammals, the helix of the ear turns or twitches towards sound. In the case of humans, it remains stationary. So the presence of some of these structures that are found in organisms but are no longer particularly useful is explained by the theory of common descent, or hypothesis of common descent. Amphibians are cold-blooded animals such as frogs, toads, and salamanders. Through the course of evolution on the planet Earth, they slowly ventured out of the water and gave rise to the mammals, the birds, and the reptiles. Homologous structures are structures that have the same evolutionary origin. They are anatomically similar. If you look at all vertebrates, their forelimbs contain the same set of bones, organized in similar ways, despite dissimilar functions. If you compare the bones of a bird to a bat, it's analogous to any human, where you'd have your upper arm bone, the femur, two lower forearm bones, the radius and the ulna, a set of wrist bones, here color-coded in green, okay? And then fingers or phalanges. Again, you can see the similarities in the bones between that of a whale and a cat. Also, a horse and a human. See the same similar single upper arm bone, two lower forearm bones, a bunch of wrist bones, and the phalanges. So in the horse, you can indicate the same number of joints found in a human finger, and the hoof, which originally was similar to a type of fingernail. Analogous structures, on the other hand, are structures that serve the same function but are not constructed similarly. So if you look at the wing structure of a bat, a bird, and a butterfly, bats are mammals, butterflies are insects, birds are obviously birds. These organisms have a different evolutionary origin. Another good example, think of a penguin. A penguin is a bird that's adapted to water. Its flipper is actually a modified wing that acts as a rudder. A porpoise is a mammal whose flipper is a modified forearm. So the structures may look similar, okay, but they have a different evolutionary origin and structure. If you look at the embryos of developing vertebrates, at a certain point they all look very similar. They'll have structures that resemble a tail, pharyngeal pouches, dorsal and ventral fins. This slide compares a chick embryo with a pig embryo, and you can see they have the same similar type structures at this early stage of development. So we mentioned that evolution was a unifying theme that brought into a variety of different areas of biology. So if we look at biochemical evidence, all living organisms use the same biochemical molecules. They all have DNA. They all utilize energy via ATP. They all have nearly identical enzymes. If you look at the developmental genes shared by animals ranging from worms to humans, humans share 99.9% of the same DNA. Though we may think that we're very different, we all have 2 arms, 2 legs, digestive system, respiratory systems. The difference between human DNA and chimp DNA, they're 99.01% similar. And even mice, really the same types of organ systems and generalized structure. So our DNA is 90% similar to that of mice. Speciation and macroevolution occurs over very long periods of time. Speciation is when you have one species of organisms and then divides into 2 or more species. Speciation, therefore, is the formation of new species. And this generally occurs because you have a group of organisms, population that becomes divided or isolated from each other, and then they'd evolve independently. They evolve so much to a point that they're considered to be different species. But what exactly is a biological species? In order to be a member of the same species, you have to be able to interbreed. You have to be able to, or you do, share the same gene pool. Each species is reproductively isolated from each other species. So where you may have some animals that, genetically could breed with each other, the females may undergo estrus at different times of the year, and therefore they're unable to breed. Or you may have two animals where one is the natural prey and the other is a predator. So for that reason, they're going to avoid each other out in the wild. Being a member of a species is not based on appearance. Flycatchers are birds that look very similar, but there's many different types of species. Humans, we can look very different, but we're all the same species. One of the key concepts here is that members of a species must be able to, when they mate, give rise to viable offspring. A liger is considered to be a hybrid. Ligers are infertile, so therefore they're not considered to be their own species. A liger is formed by mating a male lion and a female tiger. This causes a slight genetic abnormality where a growth-regulating gene is missing. A liger, adult liger, is about the same size as combining both of its parents, the male lion and female tiger. Mules are formed when you mate a female horse and a male donkey. Female mules may then be able to mate with a horse or a donkey. However, male mules are sterile, so you could never have a self-sustained, truly mule population. The mule's infertility is due to differences in chromosomes inherited by their parents. Here's some cute other types of hybrids that are not their own species. So one would be the zorse, when you made a horse and a zebra. Again, if the offspring are sterile, zorses are not considered to be their own species. This is not restricted only to animals. This also occurs with plants. You may have seen or even eaten broccoli. It's when you cross a broccoli and a cauliflower. Let's talk about adaptations. Adaptations is any characteristic that makes an organism more suited to its environment. And remember, the environment may shift, and it might shift very quickly and radically. And what's considered to be a characteristic that makes an organism more suited may then turn out to be something that makes the organism less suited. An interesting example of this is the basilisk liver, sometimes called the Jesus Christ liver. Because of the way it can move its limbs and using its tail as a counterbalance, it's able to walk on water. Another adaptation is the stretchy jaw ligaments in an anaconda. Anacondas suffocate their food, and then it may take several days for it to actually be able to ingest a meal. The Brazilian alligator bug has a very unique adaptation. It actually has a false head. It makes it look larger, and it has fake eyes on its wings. So a bird flying overhead sees this very large organism staring up at it, and this allows it to protect itself. As mentioned in this video, the sight of a peacock made Darwin sick. There seemed to be no reason to explain the train found in male peacocks. The tails are very heavy, they're very clumsy. It makes the male peacock more likely to be attacked by a predator. However, males that grow the largest tails are the most fertile and give rise to the most offspring. And for that reason, females will select males that have the largest train. This is the idea of sexual selection. Females choose the male with the most elaborate feathers. Only a very healthy male can afford to grow such a large train. Sexual selection is also apparent in the elaborate courtships that are displayed by many species. And these are species specific. So one courtship ritual displayed by one type of bird would not attract a different species of bird. A very interesting adaptation is distinct markings that are found on zebra. To us, it makes it look like the zebra really stands out. However, when a lion or another predator is present, the zebras will huddle together in a circle. And since lions are colorblind, it's very hard for them to distinguish one zebra from another. A lion is only going to attack a zebra that's away from the herd. Another adaptation is warning coloration. Bright colors, such as those found on frogs, warn of the presence of neurotoxins found in their skin. This slide reviews some of the adaptations we discussed. The finches of the Galapagos Islands have different sized beaks adapted to their diet. Anaconda, other snakes, have very loose jaw ligaments. Some types of adaptations allow an organism to blend better with its environment, such as the camouflage seen in the walking stick, the disruptive markings found in the zebra, or colorations of animals to allow them to blend in with snow. The frog has a very bright color, which is warning coloration. And in the peacocks, the long trains are involved in attracting a mate.